Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Salam.
My name is Tazheen Nizam, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the executive director of CAIR-San Diego, an office of CAIR California. As you all know, California is awesome, but San Diego is specifically awesome. So come and visit us in the most wonderful city in America. Today, I have another innate honor. I have the honor of being here on this panel with these wonderful people for our government affairs track, the inside game, building political power and impacting policies beyond the lobby visit. So I get to come to DC for lobby visits, and I thought, let's talk about that. Why not, right? So I'm honored to introduce Arshia Ali Khan, CEO of Muslim Legal Fund of America, the nation's leading legal fund defending the civil liberties of Muslims at the federal level. She has 25 years of nonprofit leadership experience and has guided MLFA through the pandemic, built the American legal ecosystem, and expanded its nationally recognized legal internship programs. Arshia has also served in the past as the 2024 chairwoman of USCMO and is the founding board member of Muslim Civil Coalition, where she has done amazing things to strengthen the nonprofit sector. Next to her is another hero, Mr. Josh Paul, who is the co-founder and director of a new policy and advocacy organization working to reshape US policy towards Israel and Palestine around equality, justice, and human rights. He's a veteran national security professional, and he has served more than a decade at the State Department. But in October 2023, he had an awakening, and he left the State Department. He's worked in Iraq, West Bank, the Pentagon, and on Capitol Hill, and has been honored by the Callaway Award for Civic Courage and the Med Global Award for Courage. Welcome. And next to him is the amazing Dr. Mohsin Ansari, who's a pediatrician and neonatologist specialist and has more than 30 years of service in both medicine and community leadership. He completed his residency and fellowship at Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland, where he also served as a chief resident. At ICNA, he has held key roles including chairman of ICNA Relief and Helping Hands for Relief and Development, and most recently, he is the president from 2021 to 2025, and he lives in Maryland with his wife and 5 sons. And I saw his wife earlier here as well. And at the last, but not the least, is Mr. Robert McCaw, who is a government affairs director at CAIR. I'm sure all of us have received emails from him. He's been here since 2011, and he leads the CAIR civic engagement and election programs. And he has chaired the USCMO in the past as well. And he has US Hill Days, sorry, apologies. Capitol Hill Days. Under Arshia's leadership, of course. So thank you everyone for being here. And so I want to start with a personal burning question. I live in a very conservative community where my elected officials they're elected officials. Let's leave it at that. So in this politically volatile atmosphere where a lot of elected officials are morally bankrupt and are pro-genocide and pro-Israel, how and when and in what way does our community continue policy work? How do we ask our communities to show up time and again when our elected officials are morally bankrupt? It's a question for all of you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Thank you again for being here, and thank you, CAIR, again for welcoming us and bringing us together on these important conversations. I say this often in my office, probably to a point where my staff is like, Arshia, okay, we get it, you know. We have the model, we have the book, we have the belief. Any of us who believe in one God, we say La ilaha illallah, We are free. We believe in that God, right? And we have a book, and that book gives us guidance. And we have a prophet, and that prophet showed us how. What is happening today is not worse than what was happening when Islam was introduced into this world. The story of humanity is the arc of justice. Allah himself is justice. So anybody who is moving in that trajectory is going to be in the positions that we're in right now. We're going to be in a struggle. We're going to be hurting. We're going to be fighting. And that is if we are lucky, if we are awakened, if we are awoke. I think, we're going to hear a lot about, obviously, Gaza as we should and what happened. But growing up, I studied psychology and, just different human dynamics. And oftentimes, when you say, oh, I had an aha moment, it's like a game-changing moment. Well, we are in a moment where our Constitution is not only eroding, not only being broken, but is being blown up. Just look at Gaza. Just look at anywhere that you want to look at, right? So how do we do it? How did he do it? He started small. He started from home. He started with those who he trusted and those who trusted him. He didn't rush it. He didn't go fast and hard. He built it to be unbreakable. And this year, for those of us who celebrated his birthday or acknowledge it, it was 1,500 years later. And the Muslim population is massive, right? There's a global impact on how we're being attacked and how we're showing up. So to your question, I think it's really important. We've been talking a lot about language, and we've been talking a lot about positioning, and we've been talking a lot about power. And building power, political power, is essential, but it's not without legal infrastructure. It's not without legal power. And that's why this conversation is so cool, because when I started at MLFA 7 years ago, we were defense. We waited for people to step in, and my team was like, Arshia, we're litigators, we're defense, we wait. And I said, what do you mean you wait? You know this is going to happen because you know the history, the policies, the way that this whole country was built, the way that the civilization has come, and we're waiting for people to fall? We're not going to wait. And so over the past 7 years, we reorged, we reimagined, we re-envisioned what we as MLFA could be. I know that we are your legal backbone. And I've said it to a lot of our leaders, especially during USCMO, I find it difficult to be placed in small rooms when my mission is so big. Because what I know is if I don't get the word out, more of us are falling. And what I also know is that any one life that is affected, it's all of us affected. And this is not Muslim, non-Muslim. We are one humanity. God is justice. And our arc towards God is that movement towards that justice. And if we are not building at home with trust, with the people that we know and that we are allied with, then we're not building at all. If we don't back that up with infrastructure, if we don't back that up with buildings, if we don't back that up with organizations like MLFA and the other ones you're going to hear, then you're just having an umniya. I think it's like a wish that you hope it's going to be better. But remember, the Quran is the criteria, and it's already set. Haqq or batil is the truth, and that is what we're fighting. So how do we ever move away from the vision of where we're trying to go?
Should we just move down the row here? Yeah. So there's something you said in asking the question that I want to come back to as a starting point for this, which is you said that our politicians are, I think you said, morally bankrupt. That's good news. And I'm not even kidding, right? And here's why. The way our politics works, it is driven by self-interest. It is driven by self-interest for every American when they go to the ballot box, and it is driven by self-interest for those politicians who we elect. By and large, right? There are certainly a few who are very morally centered, very courageous, but politics is ultimately transactional, and the ultimate goal of every politician, as much as they might say it is to represent you, is to continue to represent you, is to get elected, is to get re-elected. And that means that we have a job to do. It means, first of all, that just being on the side of justice is not enough. Justice alone, good ideas alone, morality alone in this system is not enough to win. But if we can take that basis of justice and build on it, as you said, the institutions and the approaches into American politics, whereby we can impact those politics, we can impact that self-interest, we can make it in their self-interest to listen to us, to adopt and to adjust their positions, that is where we can have an impact. And that can take many different forms. The most obvious, certainly, is at the ballot box, where we have to, first of all, show up on election day, but politics doesn't only happen on election day. We have to be present throughout the cycle, and I know many of you are, reaching out to your elected officials, reaching out to candidates for elected office, building power and building a pipeline of people to run for those offices, so that they know that we are present and so that they adjust. That's one aspect. There's another aspect too, which I know we talked about last night with my colleague Tarek Habash, who in a new policy is on our campaign finance and PAC side. I'm on the lobbying side, which is campaign finance, which is right. American politics, it's an ugly system at the best of times. It runs a lot of the time on money. We have to be present there too. We have to provide the contributions. That's not all though. There are other ways as well to be present in American politics and to shift the needle. And one of them I think we've seen actually even in the last few months is that when we talk about self-interest, one of those things that drives self-interest is ego. And people like to be on the right side of history. They don't like to be on the wrong side of history. And it's very clear right now that those who are still backing in Israel's genocide in Gaza are on the wrong side of history. And that's why you've seen in the last couple of months, people like former Biden National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan start to say, you know, this is the time, I can understand now why people should vote to stop arms to Israel. Where you've seen Matthew Miller, State Department spokesperson, who, you know, for day after day after day said, you know, there are no war crimes, there's nothing to see here. You know, we have, you know, Israel as our ironclad ally. Shift and say, yeah, I knew all along there were war crimes, but what do you want me to do? I was just the spokesperson. I can tell you what I want him to do, but anyway. But that is also happening in our elected officials, and it is starting mostly behind closed doors, where people are saying, I need to shift on this, whether it's because they see the politics shifting, whether it's because they see the midterms coming, whether it's because they see history being written. And so I think our jobs are, look, it would be wonderful if we could wave a magic wand and everyone who had voted for unconditional military support to Israel just, you know, sort of lost the next election. But that's not going to happen. That's not the way it works. We need to continue to bring people, including some people who have been absolutely terrible, who have backed genocide. But if they are in a safe seat and they're not going to lose their election, it's better they shift than we just back out and don't engage. And we need to keep pulling this country and pulling our politicians towards justice and towards right, because they're not going to do it by themselves.
Dr. Ansari.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know, I will start with this comment that in spite of all the gloom, sadness, and disappointment, this is the time to seize the opportunity. And why I'm saying that? We all know in American politics, money matters, right? And we all think, and we have a strong belief that because of the experiences, money will change everything. But did you not recently see that money was beaten? Money was defeated in New York. Zoran Mamdani is a test case and an example for us where money was defeated. APEC was defeated. How? Because money matters, but money is not everything. Let's make this going. Keep it coming, keep it happening everywhere now. Instead of APEC being the advantage to a candidate, in New York, right now APEC is a liability. And make it a liability everywhere. And this change of public opinion which is happening so rapidly, a couple of weeks back when CNN, so it is CNN, that's why I'm quoting, the polls showed a basic shift of 73% of opinion, from pro-Israel to pro-Palestine. What they lost, they gained. So this is the opportunity to defeat the money, and it will trickle down when the lawmakers start realizing that APEC and money, there are still some crackpots who will just continue to say, whatever you do. I was looking at one of the videos recently, one of the senators just walking with the Al Jazeera reporter, and just was so stubborn, so arrogant, that he continued to say, I will support whatever you do. So let them be. But with the opportunity of changing public opinion, this has cost a lot, 100,000 lives. This has cost a lot, thousands of babies. You know, I was talking to some of the brothers before, and I mentioned this in one of the speeches when we had the National March. Couple of days were very, very difficult in the beginning of this genocide for me as an individual. The reason was that the news came that Israeli government has turned off the electricity. So there is no electricity in Gaza. And what it meant was that there were hundreds of babies who were in cribs on ventilators. Imagine, I'm a neonatologist, I'm a baby in ICU doctor. When we had an oxygen saturation from 95% to 85% in a baby in the middle of the night, the whole unit of an ICU gets crazy. They stay up all night to bring that 85% to 95% to save one life. Imagine what I would have felt. Those 2 days were tough. I kept on thinking what is going on with those babies. And eventually we saw the very, very disturbing images of many of them died in their incubators, in their cribs. No one in the human history have seen this. And this is what it cost to bring the public opinion to what we are seeing now. I recently, yesterday, saw the news, and I think it is authentic. And if it is such a huge news that Spain has declared, you know, their national game is soccer. They love soccer. And they said if Israel is qualified in World Cup, they will boycott the World Cup. If Israel is Spain. Imagine this whole situation. Nobody ever heard that people demonstrated in Japan, in Korea. 500,000 plus people changing this whole world. And whatever America's lone hand stands for veto, it will not last. We are not only losing the love and opinion of our own individuals and Mr. Trump, and they will know this better. They are losing the respect among the world community as America as the leader of the different nations. We have lost the reputation and izzah among all the nations. And this is the loss. But sooner or later, this is going to be changed the way things are. I will ask all of you sitting here in this room, if you do not spend, if you do not allocate at least an hour a day to be part of this, you are not fulfilling the responsibility. Quran says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha, laha ma kasabat wa layha ma iktasabat. When we go in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on our right and left will be Fatima, the martyr who made all those stories, and Muhammad Nuban, the grandfather who said, soul of my life, they will be on our left and right in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we did not have an hour every day to work for this cause. We owe this blood. We owe this responsibility. We have to find our way, our niche. Where can we be involved? Is it a phone call? Is it a demonstration? Is it part of CAIR's, ICNA, MLFA, anybody who is doing demonstrations? We have to commit ourselves for this. If we don't, we will be answerable, not in this dunya, but also in akhirah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wow. Assalamu alaikum. Audio, 1, 2, 3. Hello? All right, cool. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So what do I do in the face of morally bankrupt politicians? The first thing is I'm going to realize that most of them I cannot reach directly. So that means I'm going to have to operate around them, and I need to be persistent. I believe in polite persistence, where however I communicate my message, whether they're my opponent or my ally, my message is hopefully going to at least be communicated in such a way that it's not offensive, but that it's also powerful and it brings the truth to the power, right? I need to create a message where I cannot get attacked, but I can call out exactly what they're doing. So I don't become a liability for myself or my organization, my advocacy, but at the same time, I'm bringing those hard truths. Now, an example of a morally bankrupt politician would be Nancy Mace, this very unhinged representative from North Carolina. She just this week tried to censure Ilhan Omar, strip her from her committee positions, humiliate her. Several hours before that vote, which in the end it was tabled, her resolution, she wrote, and I wouldn't agree with this statement, but she wrote on X, radical Islamic groups like CAIR are rushing to Ilhan's defense and demanding members of Congress oppose my motion to have her censured and removed from her committees. Every single Republican on the floor tonight needs to reject radical Islam and incitement of violence and the celebration of political assassination. And obviously, all of that is a bunch of lies. But we counteracted her message, and we tailored a special and specific email that highlighted all the nasty things she's said, all the nasty things some of her colleagues have said, Republican or Democrat, and shown examples of we haven't actually seen a censure motion for any of these. And yet, here we are. We're exposing the hypocrisy of this moment. We were told that actually moved 1 or 2 offices in such a way that we held the line. Ilhan is still on her position on these committees. And now we're moving forward. The fight's not over, but we're there. So, thank you. But being persistent, combating this type of hate means always being in the room or speaking even to the audience that doesn't necessarily want to hear you. I know for a fact that there's been some backsliding even in Republican offices because they started to realize 25% of the Muslim community votes for them. They were starting to see some alignment on some social and policy issues that they could have inroads to our community. They even hired outreach directors in several states to engage the Muslim community. Then 2 years ago happened, and we actually see them going back to some of the talking points that they had left behind from the Islamophobia network. So when confronting morally bankrupt politicians, I don't think I can have anyone have a come to Allah moment where they're going to see the light, the Noor, and they're going to start just becoming better policymakers. We have to understand what is moving them. If they have constituents that are voting for them, I'm maybe not going to be able to change that district, but I can be polite and persistent in my messaging. And I can tell you, working for CAIR since 2011, entering 2008, I have seen a sea change in Washington, D.C. The things that CAIR and the rest of the Muslim community have been lambasted for in publicly speaking against, whether it's the erosion of our civil rights or human rights issues overseas, when they wanted us to be quiet about these things because it wasn't polite politics or, what are the Muslims doing? You're under threat. You shouldn't be the threat. No, we are the threat to this paradigm. And so we are polite, we're persistent, we're getting our ideas out there, and we expose these networks to the point where we are changing the policy environment. So you can't necessarily this is 501c3 space, so I'm not saying push people out, but push ideas. And I think that's what we've been doing. And we've done it so consistently, and I'll kind of end here, that this year was going to be a very nasty year in Congress for us, and it still is. Everything's on thin margins. But so far this year, we have successfully thwarted the nonprofit killer bill. We have successfully stopped the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. We have, for the most part, stopped the IGO Boycott Act. We just stopped Brian Mass's passport revocation measures that he was adding to a State Department bill this week in the Foreign Affairs Committee. During their markup, at the very beginning, they had a manager's amendment to strip that language out. It's a distraction. You know why it was a distraction? Because it was called out successfully by so many non-Muslim and Muslim legal groups, and it got enough press coverage that this was going to be a headache, so they just yanked it. I don't think that's going to see the light of day. Ilhan's censure vote, one by one, it was tabled by one vote, right? We held the line there. Today, Randy Fine has introduced a quote-unquote anti-Sharia bill. It's one of those anti-foreign law bills. We all remember them from the 2010s. That's so 2010s. I'm not even worried about that. I'm worried about milk and egg prices, right? That's a non-threat. But I think we have to just realize that the advocacy that we've been doing on these First Amendment issues, these freedom of religion issues, our morally bankrupt opponents in Congress, they're not going to listen to us, but we have to be consistent in our message of truth-telling, and we are now shaping the environment where maybe I can't get Mace, but we at least saw 3 or 4 Republicans and a few Democrats that might have flipped on Omar. They either jumped to the other side on the vote or they held the line, and that's just because the things that we've been saying that were rejected are now becoming public norms. And isn't that why these morally bankrupt politicians always opposed us in the first place? They were afraid we were going to get here at this point where we built the C3s, the C3s built the C4s, the C4s did their own endorsed 527s, and the list will go on. As we build our institutions and we build up our voice and we're consistent in that messaging, we're going to change the entire policy environment around us, because if something is based on a lie, then truth is a good antiseptic.
Thank you, Robert. I want to pose a question to Arshia. As we've seen in the last 23 months, and even before, the legal support system is the progressive movement, that carries the progressive movement. With what you've been seeing, how does MLFA use these legal battles, sometimes win, sometimes not, to push the agenda, to keep pushing policies that we can benefit from in the years to come?
Thank you. Well, we all know that this country is based on laws, right? So when we look at outside in the world, we see them using guns and we see violence. But when we as Americans born and raised here, what has guided us? What has dictated us? How do we know what is what? And that creation of law doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that's something that I don't know if, I used in my opening that we're awake now. It's almost a demand for us. So what your question is, how are the laws that we're seeing, like the movement that we are seeing, how is it affecting policy? It's always connected. Law happens in society. The lawmakers are of society. If you look at them, a lot of them are lawyers. And so you have to bring us together in one room, and that's why I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be sitting with lawyers and policymakers and leaders and community, and because it's not happening in a vacuum. At MLFA specifically, we look at impact litigation. We say, brick by brick was how, when I was young, that's how you built institutions, brick by brick. But at MLFA, we are changing the law one case at a time. It's case by case. It's one life at a time. When Ayman Suleiman, Miriam talked about him a little bit earlier. I can't tell you how that feels to have him walk out and be free. It's personal, right? I'm a mother of 5. When I watch babies in Gaza carrying babies in bags, it's personal. So we have to stop thinking they're lawyers, they're politicians, they're leaders, they're communities, that's the masjid, I'm Desi, I'm white, I'm American. This is a call to humanity, and it's a call to reevaluate the law. Whose law? What law? Why was it created? Right? I'm from Canada, And when I moved to this country, I didn't have the gravity of slavery embedded in my makeup. It's different today. And I often say this, my first job, I was the director of racial justice, and I had to sit in a corner because the lawmakers of that organization said, you're not black, white, or Hispanic, so you don't fit. What? I felt like a bad girl sitting in a corner watching all of this happen as the director. Like, things are ludicrous. They're a little bit crazy. So I'm just gonna alert us back to waking up. We're talking about unprecedented times. We're talking about Constitution eroding. But why and how? It's because we have been asleep. A lot of us, like, I'm a daughter of immigrants. They came to give us a better life. Our parents came to give us my parents came. And my father was afraid for me to wear the hijab. And over, he was the only person I ever fought with to wear the hijab. But you know what I used to actually win that fight? Was the law of God. Right? That's why I kind of said there's a bigger law, there's a bigger why, there's a bigger purpose. And I told him, I love you and I understand that you're afraid for me. But if I don't do this, I won't exist. Because someone like me, out of integrity, I'm no one. And so I've had, this has been politicized. I've been called all sorts of names in this country. It took me a while to get a grip that God transported me from Canada to US so I could wake up and see those babies and see those women and see those children and see my brothers and really evaluate the law. Right? I've said this at my nonprofit. Nonprofits are not given a research and development arm. And that's crazy. We're set, you have a limited budget, you have a huge social problem, go fix it, go solve it. It doesn't work that way. Corporations don't work that way. Nonprofits are, in fact, the third sector. You have the government, you have for-profit, you have nonprofit. So we have to stop looking at ourselves like, oh, they're just good people. Oh, they don't deserve salaries. Like, what are we doing? Who made those rules up? And why do we accept those rules? So as somebody, in the beginning of my time at MLFA, I don't want to support you because you're political. And I'd be like, no, I'm not political, I'm legal. Today, I'm everything. Politics are legal, legal is politics, society, humanity, men, women, Muslim, non, we are all one. We are fighting for the same justice. Our vision at MLFA is due process, is equality of law across. If I'm wrong, then let it be known. But if I'm not wrong, then stop making me wrong. And so creating good law is something I had to learn at MLFA. Half of our battle is creating good law, because when bad law gets created, there's a process. Setting precedent is good law. But you can set a bad precedent. Right? So we have to, like, I think in today's conversations we were saying, let's reimagine, reinvigorate our minds. Know that law and policy and leadership and community and society are all moving or have to move in one trajectory. And that is our power in the law and in the political system. These wins happen because he has courage to say, no, not me anymore in this space. And then I have to take that and say, you and I have to be aligned. And we have to work together so law and policy get stronger together as we move forward, right? And if we don't do that, then he has the mic or I'm on the ground, but we're not moving anything. And that's how we do it.
Thank you, Arshia. That's amazing. Very well said. Law, policy, social issues, advocacy, we all have to work together. Otherwise, we will not be able to move the needle. And there's a long way to go. And I'm so happy that you all are here and like each other and work together with each other. Josh, the next question is for you. With policy makers, there's a lot of gatekeeping. How do we broach those issues? How do we get into those rooms and keep pushing the envelope so policies are made aligning values with us?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways of doing that. And part of it goes back to that question of self-interest. Part of it is understanding who you're talking to and what the entry point is, right? And so to give you an example, so a new policy is working on the Hill, we're lobbying members. We're a nonpartisan organization. We're working with both Democrats and Republicans for several reasons, one of them being that the Democrats just aren't good enough on this, and there aren't enough Democrats anyway, and even if they were, they still probably wouldn't be enough to be good on this. So you have to work with both sides of the aisle, and there is a shift on the Republican side, but it's a different conversation. You're not going to go into a Republican office and say, aren't you devastated by what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza? No, they're not, and frankly, nor are a lot of Americans, because that's just not where their focus is. But when you go to Republican voters, when you go to Republican offices and say, really, $20 billion of taxpayer money going to a foreign military at a time where we are dealing with disaster relief in America, at a time where we are cutting budgets, at a time where Doge is out there looking for efficiencies in government, and here's $20 billion going out of the door in the last couple of years, or for others, it's our First Amendment rights. What do you mean we are going to try to deport someone for writing an op-ed? What do you mean that people are getting fired for their free speech? What do you mean that we are going to try and pass a law that makes it illegal to criticize a foreign country, that calls that hate speech? And if you can find that foot in the door, first of all, you may never get to the conversation you actually want to have, but you can build a relationship around it and get that foot in the door and expand that wedge and keep moving forward. The other important thing, I think, is coalition building. And first of all, right, this is a numbers game, and there just aren't enough people in the Muslim American, Arab American community to win, particularly the battle on Palestine, just with those communities. You have to build partnerships, and those partnerships can also get you indoors. I attended this week, there was a memorial ceremony in Congress hosted by the Armenian National Committee for the 2-year anniversary of the ethnic cleansing of Artsakh, of Nagorno-Karabakh. And they have their scorecard on their website of here are the members who have called what happened to the Armenians a genocide and who are good on their issues. And we looked at, okay, here's the members of Congress who have called what's happening in Gaza a genocide, a much smaller list, but right now it's at 21, I believe, which is moving, and are good on this issue. Where's the overlap? And okay, why have those members who've called Artsakh ethnic cleansing and genocide not called Gaza ethnic cleansing and genocide? And how do we build partnerships to get to them and to bring them over and to expand this circle? We're looking at similar opportunities in other spaces too when it comes to, for example, my colleague Tariq Habash had an article in Newsweek a couple of weeks ago, I do encourage you to go Google it, on essentially how the IDF's operations in the West Bank are the precedent, both in terms of the strategy, the tactics, the technology for ISIS operations and expanding operations here in the US. So how do you build a relationship around that can also get you into some doors that maybe just going with Palestine won't? So I think it's a number of factors. And of course, I'll throw in again that money is another factor as well that can sometimes get you in the door. But I think that you have to look at each policymaker or politician on their own terms of where they are going, where they have been, who else they are working with, what else they have said, even if it doesn't relate directly, and find that entrance point. Because I think for everyone, almost everyone, there is an entrance point.
Thank you, Josh. The next question for Dr. Ansari. With ICNA doing so many things in housing insecurities, food insecurities, domestic violence, there's so many issues that we want to approach our elected officials and push for aids and push for policies to allow these benefits to our communities, especially our newly arrived immigrants. When you are in a room and you are asking for all of these benefits for our community members, how do you manage them that just yesterday you wanted to punch them because they voted against the ceasefire, but today you want to ask them for these policies?
I think it is also very important that when we talk to them and we present our case, it shows them the benefit for themselves. So, for example, there was a senator who presented a bill against ICNA in Congress to designate ICNA as a terrorist organization. This was a congressman, now he's a senator. And very high rank in Republican side. It's HR 160, and anybody wants to Google it. So that was 2019. In 2020, we tried to talk to him and tell him whatever you said through the help of Islamophobes, MEF, Daniel Pipe about ICNA, it's all fabrication. There's nothing truth in it. But he and his staff were adamant that they are going to push this resolution. In the midst of this, he's from Indiana. So in the midst of this, we were having a back to school drive in his district. We actually arranged one. And we asked him to come over. We are going to supply 1,000 school bags to poor and needy who would never had a new school bag in their life. And he came, his staff came, and that was the icebreaker. That is the time when things started thinking. Then I met him in person, and I said to him that, do you realize they are part of the world where America wants their image to be better, where American army cannot go, they don't watch CNN and Fox News, and we are desperate that American image should improve, like tribal areas of Pakistan and Yemen and places where there are people who think America are the bad guys. Do you realize, and I told him, and I said it to many other lawmakers also, do you realize that there are individuals who go to their home in their communities, provide them food, provide them their life sustenance, wearing a jacket or a t-shirt saying Helping Hand USA. And that's where people think, oh, USA, they are good guys, they are not bad people. A service which we are providing to this country, which is not counted anywhere. So these, and eventually this congressman, I had a fundraiser for him at my own home. And things have flipped completely. The guy who presented a resolution for us. So I think making sure that they understand there is a benefit for them also, number one. Number two, since you mentioned ICNA's work, Alhamdulillah, ICNA is, everybody probably knows, has footprints everywhere in this country. We were in Alaska just a couple of months back, and we found ICNA Sisters unit in Alaska and a YM unit in Alaska. So having all these different areas of work, what we do basically, that all the good work which is done by CAIR, MLFA and other organizations, we bring it to the people, to the communities. We are the grassroots. So their good work needs to be transmitted to the communities. And having our footprints and our units all over the country, whether through Young Muslim, whether ICNA Sisters, whether CSJ, ICNA Relief, Helping Hand, Embrace. Embrace, I don't know how many of you, anybody have heard the name of an organization called Embrace? Anyone? All right, let me tell one. This is an amazing initiative of ICNA. This is a group which we have formed few years back for revolt Muslims. And we have units in different, like 13 states already now. All the revolts gather, socialize, learn Islam, and we provide the support, whatever support they need after accepting Islam. So bringing the policies, which is like Brother Robert does all this great work, but how will it reach to grassroots? That's the vehicle which we provide from ICNA. And we are foot soldiers of this ummah. We don't want to be the one who are seen and labeled and mentioned, but we provide the service. But at the same time, we need to show leadership. We need to show the courage. We need to challenge those people who are doing things which is hurting America, which is against Islam. On the Hill Day, when Ben Gavir came, he was challenged by a few women, and one of them is sitting here, and on his face, when he was challenged, this was a sign of his strength. In the Capitol Hill, where he thought he is the boss, he was told, no, you are not. Leave this place, and he had to run away. This is the type of determination and courage which majority of our sisters basically have shown. And I will say this last, one of our senators, in the beginning of genocide, it was like November, December time, 2023, a group of scholars went to him and asked him that he should ask for ceasefire. And this is a scholar who told me himself, I trust him. The response from the senator was, no way. No way. I'm not going to ask for ceasefire. Whatever is done on 7th of October, I want a revenge. This should happen. Israel should continue. And this senator is the biggest champion right now for us, who is demanding complete embargo. Okay, I'm talking about Chris Van Hollen. Complete embargo. This is the same guy who said something in November 2023, and now what he is saying. Why? I salute to Muslim sisters who made him and his office crazy with hundreds of phone calls on daily basis. This is something so important to remember, how much it counts, how much it makes difference. That these one mere phone call, what difference it makes. And when they are in 500, when they are in 1,000, they actually, one of their office told us, we are getting phone calls from both sides. But the problem is the ratio of the phone calls is 500 to 1. And this is what made the difference. So these efforts which we do, and what ICNA does, and what our organizations does, and on the day on Hill, there were more than 200 youth from YM who were there. They were amazing. And now on AMP day on the Hill, there are already 200 registered there. So our goal is to be there, to show the grassroots strength of American Muslims, be together and be at service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ansari. Takbir for our ICNA sisters. MashaAllah, they are amazing. Robert, so when we are meeting with our elected officials, some of them, out of the kindness of their heart, express support in private closed doors, but are afraid to express that same support outside or publicly. What do we do then?
Yeah, you have to go build them the support and the political power so that they can publicly express what they always express to you in private. And I think, by the way, groups like AIPAC, the ADL, they already know. It's not that the politicians that are going up to bat for them want to. It's just that they think it's politically necessary that they have to. And so they're trying to create systems where these politicians have to operate in, where without their support, they can't. And so I think that's where it really does come a grassroots effort. Politicians respect votes, volunteers, and money. Well, as a C3, I can't tell you where to put your money, and I can't tell you where to put your votes, and I can't tell you where to put your volunteers, but you need them. And you not only need to do that, you have to create a political environment where it's okay to have these conversations about these tough things. So that's where I kind of go back to what I said earlier. You kind of have to break those proverbial glass ceilings on these conversations so that you can have those conversations. And it's really tough in the beginning, but I know in the last decade being in DC, if what happened now in Gaza happened, in 2013, and it did, a minor version of it. I think it was 2013, 12, 14, okay. Yeah, so it's happened a few times, right? We would only have like several members of Congress. There might be a letter with like 5 people on it if we were lucky. And now we are literally getting dozens and dozens of members of Congress to start voting, not alone just signing letters. So first we have to have the tough conversations for them to make it publicly acceptable, to speak out about these things. We have to build political power to, make sure that they can rely on your community to back them up. And then you have to make alliances with other communities. But I really do believe in institution building. I think we're in a really great phase right now where we as the Muslim community are starting to get it done in matching others that have come before us and done what we're trying to do. We're going to get there. But you have to build them that power.
Thank you, Robert. Go ahead.
Can I just say one thing on top of that as well? I think one thing AIPAC and the other side does very well is praise and take credit for things.
Sure.
Like if members vote for something, AIPAC will do a tweet and maybe even a campaign in their district saying, thank you, Congressperson so-and-so for your vote, even if the member, wasn't really paying attention and wasn't focused on it. If the members, sign a letter that they like, it's, AIPAC's demonstrating strength. Look at all these members we got onto a letter. When, we have, for example, 43 members of Congress write a letter to Secretary Rubio slamming the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, right, the GHF effort, and for the first time reaching out and saying this is inhumane and we've got to let the food through and the medicine through. Our response typically is to go to their town halls and say, what the hell is wrong with you? Why aren't you on Block the Bombs? Right? We have got to also, yes, that's true, but we've also got to take credit where there is a move. We've got to, because that also demonstrates power. It shows that we are having an influence. And so I think to give praise where there is a move, even if it's a small move, give a bit of praise, and to build up and to also demonstrate that power through highlighting our successes, not simply saying it's not enough.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Thank your elected officials when they vote the right way. That's a very necessary step. So I have a closing question for our panelists, but I want to open to the public. If anybody has a question, let me come up there.
Assalamu alaikum. Very quick question. In elections, always we're trapped in the lesser of the two evil, and I believe this doesn't work anymore. So if you have an election, whether it's Congress, whether it's presidential or Senate, and one is Zionist and one is ultra-Zionist, what's the best course of action?
I mean, I'm just going to answer that first part. There are some times when I'm looking at who's running for governor, and my first question is, where are they both on Gaza? And they're both horrible. Well, now I'm actually looking at second-tier issues. And I think that's really important. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You ever hear that phrase? Sister Linda, she spoke to it earlier. If you're agreeing with 9 out of 11 things, that's pretty rare anyways in D.C., you're going to have to sometimes make that choice. But the better option is to train your community members and train your allies so that when someone from that group that's familiar with you is running for office, they know your issues. And that, if you're showing up to election in November, then you've already lost it because the candidates were picked in the primaries. And so really, as a community, learning how to get more engaged in the primary process, which, by the way, starts a year before. That's when you start training community members about how to run for office. And C3s can train people on the skills necessary. And then when they jump and they actually make their bid, we can no longer help them. Maybe there's a C4 out there they can, as independently, they can speak to. But, it's creating this environment where, again, C3s can nurture. Naturally, C4s are going to support candidates that they support. Get involved early on and start inspiring people in our community to run. CAIR is working with CAIR Action. We're revitalizing our directory of elected Muslim officials. The last time we did it, we spotted like 220-something members, elected members across the country. We think that number's risen. Last year was a heck of an election. Didn't really have time to track everything, but we're going back to the board. We're going to put a new list. I guarantee you there's well over like 260 elected Muslim officials. If not, we'll break 300 next election cycle. That's because we as a community are also getting used to the idea of running for office, but that just doesn't mean you get the Muslim votes. That means when you run for office, you were an ally to so many communities around you that they put their trust in you to represent their interests. And those are the Muslims that win races. It's not the Muslims that came out of the mosque and said, I'm running. It was the Muslim that was on some larger coalition, and later on they got the Muslim community support because they already had demonstrated their skill, value, and worth.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add a quick point. We do know that there are two sides usually, but we all also should recognize there are lots of Muslims now participating in these elections, and they are bravely talking about Gaza. And there are many who have good chances. The brother in Chicago, he is highest in polls right now in Congress. Abdul in Michigan. And disclaimer, ICNA has a C4 and C3 both, so my position. So whatever I am saying may fall under my C4 status. I'm the board member for that C4. So we have many people who are either front runners, second or third, even if they are not, don't think they are not going to win, so don't vote for them. We need to increase their strength. The brother who is in Chicago contesting, he was second because the Muslims supported him and made him the second, and the first one is not there anymore. He automatically, because of his previous experience. So I think it is very important that find out where are the Muslims contesting and support them and help them. When you get that text message, don't unsubscribe from that text message. Support them and help them, please. Thank you.
I just want to add one point to your question. I'm going to tag, let's be mindful of learned helplessness. Let's be mindful of being apathetic, right? That's part of the design. That's why I was kind of talking in bigger global terms, because again, we're talking about terminology, we're talking about action. But nowadays, we get overwhelmed. That's part of the strategy. That's why I kind of went all the way back. Remember that showing up, and this is what you learn in the court system, 14 years, 16 years, 18 years, 21 years, our cases run long. And many times people would say, Arshia, you're still doing the same case. Get over it. Give me something fresh. That's like the biggest challenge. I have my marketing and communications lead here. Everyone wants the hot topic, the hot story, what's going to sell, but that's not always reality, right? The reality is we're going to get the lesser of two evils. We're going to get maybe bad for a long time, but we've been hearing a theme, showing up, standing tall, being in the face of whatever is coming is the win. And also, even if it's Muslim, it doesn't always mean it's good. So we cannot be the single-minded, like we are not a monolith. Like Linda was talking about it today. Just because we mean well doesn't mean we do well. Just because we're here doesn't mean we're not, like, so we have to start thinking differently. I mean, I think our panelists have said it, like educate yourself, show up, be there. But learned helplessness is a strategy. Making you weak, making us feel like we don't have, being in scarcity. These are all strategies. The wars, calling these countries third world was a strategy back then. Calling them barbarians, calling us foreigners. If you look at me, they think you're uneducated, can't speak. You really sound like you're from here. I was like, where do you think I'm from? Right? But that's what we're fighting. So just try, all of us, like we can't get distracted. The vision has to be where we're going, and we have to keep showing up whether we like it or not.
Thank you.
Final question for Josh. Do you have any regrets in how you used your platform for good, and would you have done anything differently?
No, I don't think I have any regrets. If you're talking about sort of resigning from State Department and speaking up, I think looking back, maybe the only thing I regret is not being more forceful in some of my choices of words early on. I mean, when I resigned, I in my letter, I wrote ethnic cleansing and apartheid. But, should I have used genocide earlier? Should I have, been more direct? I think I was always trying to strike a balance because I was also trying to bring people along and still get into spaces, and there are still, you do still have to be, unfortunately, in some spaces careful about the words you use. But I think that's really my only regret.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We spoke a little bit about moral bankruptcy, and we spoke a little bit about what it means to go into our elected officials' office and convince them to change their mind no matter where they are on the spectrum. And I think one thing that baffles me is I want to believe that money isn't everything, but I don't know if I believe that when I look at these Congress members, when I look at our elected officials and where their stocks are, when I look at what they're investing in, when I look at the defense contracting companies that are weaponizing off of our own turmoil. I want to believe that money isn't everything, but it does feel like for them, money for them and their families and their children is everything. So how do we make that shift knowing that they're profiting in so many ways because of where they're putting their money and where they're putting their mouth? And how do we change that? Because I don't think that can be changed on principle.
So I'll just say money is everything until it isn't. And we've heard from some other speakers at this conference about, some of the most heavily financed races where the opposition, perceived opposition, just outspent us. But we out-organized them and got more voters. And so, as a community. And so that's what will really come down to. Money is going to mean everything in an election, especially when there's such voter apathy, until you get the voters mobilized, until you have a team of 30 people knocking on doors to make sure people are registered and they're going to turn out to vote on election day. And so I would agree with you. Money is everything until it isn't. And that's where you have to build a better ground game. And that's the thing. There are a lot of outside groups that will do media ads. They will send texts, they will do phone calls, and they don't have a single person in that district. If you have a community there, then you can push back.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you guys all for your amazing work. So I have a question about long-term strategy, especially considering, as Sister Arshia said, people have woken up. And folks that have woken up and are new to the work, and obviously it's been 2 years and they're seeing 23 months of genocide and people are demoralized and hopeless. If you could talk about some of the work that folks at AIPAC have done, which has a history, 75-year history. I'm going to let you guys know. I could go on myself, but I'll let you guys do that. And also the labeling of our elected officials. When we label XYZ, oh, they're Zionist, and we give up on them. So if you guys could touch on long-term strategy for those folks who have been calling every day and are demoralized and feel very hopeless.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. There's a lot to cover in that space. Let me just start with the AIPAC piece of that, because yes, they have been around for many decades. They are very effective. I also don't want to overstate their effectiveness, and I also want to point out that it's not just AIPAC. So first of all, there is an entire ecosystem out there, right? And I think one of the things we have to look out for is we see members of Congress in the last few weeks in particular saying, I'm not going to accept any money from AIPAC. Okay, that's great. The brand is becoming toxic on the Democratic side. But are they going to turn around and take money from DMFI, Democratic Majority from Israel, which is a lot of the same funding, a lot of the same people, but just a different messaging that is more, quasi-progressive but democratic. But at the same time, it's also not just the money, right? It's that they have also been very effective, first of all, in building an ecosystem with, for example, the ADL, which, will come in and call you anti-Semitic if you say something critical, and with communities around the country, and building intercommunal bridges, so that there are also very strong links between the Zionist ecosystem and many African-American communities where they have contributed funding to local, boys and girls clubs and swimming pools and all this sort of thing. And so there is a lot of catching up to do, but also we tend to overstate how impactful they are. Because money is not actually everything, and we see that not only in the Mamdani example, but we saw that in Somalis case as well in the last cycle, and we see that in other races. That right now, at least for now, votes still are the thing that matter most. And if we can mobilize, if we can energize, if we can bring out the vote, and also if we can build the coalitions to bring out the votes in places where we might not have the numbers by ourselves. Because yes, okay, we can have a real impact in Michigan and in some parts of California and wherever else it might be, but what about Nebraska? Okay, there's a community there, some wonderful people there, but how do we build a bridge? There's an election coming up in Nebraska now where there is a competitor, an independent, Dan Osborne, who actually might be significantly better. on Palestine, on U.S. military assistance, on all of these things. So how do we, build those coalitions? And then the only other thing I would say on the question about what do you say to people who are just coming into this is, I think, first of all, we have to celebrate our wins and we have to recognize where they occur, and some of them are going to be very small wins, but we have to give also people something to be proud of, and there are a lot of things to be proud of. If you look at recent votes, for example, on joint resolutions of disapproval in the Senate, yes, almost 3/4 of the Senate voted against, but you know what? 27 Democrats, more than half the Democrats, including the senior Democrats, on armed services, on foreign relations, on appropriations. These are wins and we can be proud of them. At the same time, I think we also need to recognize that as much as there is an urgency in the moment, creating real change is a marathon and not a sprint. And we've got to also be stoic in the face of setbacks and defeats and be willing to accept that this is going to be a generational effort and that we are all playing a part in it. But we also need to recognize that it is going to take a long effort.
I just want to add one other thing. We talked about institution building. You were talking about strategy. So I do want to give you hope because we are actually all talking to each other, right? That this is why this conference is really a powerful conference because we've been doing this work. Like, I don't know how many people even know that the Muslim Legal Fund of America existed, but we're going to celebrate or commemorate whatever it is because I don't know how much of a celebration it is when our world is burning down, but we're about 25 years in. So we're not reactive anymore. We had to be reactive when 9/11 happened, and we didn't know. But why I reference some bigger frameworks for us is because we all have a responsibility. We all can make a difference, and we are seeing that shift. But also, I want you to hold us accountable. You have to know the organizations. I think one of my pet peeves, and it was said the other day too, is that everyone comes up with their own 501c3. I'm like, seriously, why? Like, why do people keep doing that? We have to come together, and we are doing it. As part of my leadership under USCMO was we were evaluating, and I see Dr. Ismahan over there too, like what is our role as these organizations, as these leaders? We're all leaders, but we are in these seats, and these seats demand something of us, and you guys have to hold us accountable. Instead of everyone, we get annoyed with each other and like, oh, I don't like the way he does it, I'm gonna go do my own thing. We are losing our power when we don't believe, A, that we are capable, and B, that we are capable. So we have this cancel culture. Like, it's easy for us to talk about them, but this conference is a call to looking at us. Talk about us, get us better, because I promise you, we are smarter, we have the money, and we are spades in numbers. But what we are not is united. What we are not is coming and standing and fighting. We're not pushing that door together. A lot of people have pitted MLFA versus CAIR all the time. And that was the first thing I broke. I went straight to Nihad as I got named CEO of MLFA. I said, Nihad, why do we hate each other? He's like, we don't. I was like, can you tell me a little bit more? Because everywhere I go, it feels like we're being pit against one another. And at MLFA 3 years ago, we started a project with CAIR in Chicago, and we're launching it this year, the American Muslim Legal Ecosystem. Because you have a right to know what organizations are there and doing what. So inshallah, you'll see it, but we can't keep being these dissipated lights. And that's why I was referencing the book, the criteria, justice, big words, but it all applies to now. It applies to here and now. It applies to it. So strategically, hold us accountable, don't recreate, and we have to work together. We are committed to doing that, even if we fight it out. Ask Brother Mohsin. We'll fight it out, but we're still in it together. I'm just joking.
So I chaired USCMO before her. So just the final, you probably will, I know Brother Edward wants us to finish it. Just final, I wanted to just remind everybody an ayah from Quran to finish this off. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. Bad things and good deeds are not equal. We are the good people. We are the people of Quran. We are the Ummah of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is the difference between us and APEC or anybody else. We stand firm, we stand courageous, we stand united, and we work together in conferences like this. Thank you, CAIR, for doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ansari. One last question, and since Arshia and Dr. Ansari only went, so Robert and Brother Paul, how do you build a bench? Like my husband taught me this concept, Allah Rahmo, building a bench, and we as a Muslim community lack it. So 30-second answer, please, because Edward's going to kick me out otherwise.
When you say bench, I think bench strength, and so that's raising the next generation up from under you. And that is just making sure that whenever you have a department and you have programs, you have to say, where are they? Where's that next generation? I've already recruited an intern just today because we were at the table and talking. I want to pad resumes the right way and get people into college and into programs that benefit us.
Thank you.
And my 30 seconds is start local. If you are interested, if you want to make a difference, your first step is not run for the United States Senate. Your first step is run for the school board, build the experience, run for the local council, and let's build those benches, and then that's the funnel that we can then bring in through people who have experience, who have networks, who have built coalitions. And so I think there's a lot of building from the ground up. It's happening. I want to say, and I want to recognize there's a lot of organizations, including in this room, who are working on it, but that's an important part of it as well.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for our panelists.